emergency lighting masterclass. We'll talk about the duration of emergency lighting system. So, what is the duration? What do you mean by duration? Duration is also called the autonomy of the system, and this is how long the battery pack within the luminaire will last when there's a mains failure. So, how long the battery will last? How long we said the emergency line it provides a low level emergent lighting when there's a mains failure, so that people can navigate their way through the building into the escape routes and outside the building. So how long should the battery pack within the emergency system last? What is the duration of that battery pack? Well, to determine that duration, we need to consider one, the size of the building. We need to consider the complexity of the building. We need to consider that people will be walking through the building. It's going to be a walking pace. They won't run when there's a mains failure. So the emergency light system should be able to last them as they walk through the building. We need to consider the duration of the safety operation. If there's a safety operation within the space, what do you expect that duration? What do you expect that duration of that safety operation to be? Also, when we are considering the duration, specifying the duration of the emergency lighting system, you don't only consider the evacuation time, that is the time it takes somebody to safely leave the building through the escape route. You also have to consider the reoccupation time, because when the battery drains, you need to charge up the battery to full capacity before you allow people into the building. So you don't only consider the evacuation, you also have to consider the reoccupation. How quickly do you want the occupants to go back into the building when the um, when the when the mains battery when the emergency battery kicks in? There are two durations that is provided according to the standards. There's a 1 hour duration battery and the 3 hour duration battery. So two battery types are provided. And one thing you have to know, that as I've mentioned before, the luminaire must fully recharge within 24 hours before the building can be occupied. So the charging period, the charging time must also be considered. As I said, there are two durations that are provided: 1 hour and 3 hours. So where do we need the 3 hour duration? So the 3 hour duration is required where immediate evacuation is not required. What I mean by this is, when the mains fail, the occupants don't immediately the light will change, the light will switch to the emergency mode, but the occupants are not required to evacuate the building immediately. So the battery will be discharging. But with the 3 hours is long enough to carry the system whilst the people get ready to evacuate the building. And this 3 hours is often required in places where there is sleeping risk, where people sleep in the building, such as hotels, student accommodation, maybe even healthcare facilities. Also, licensed premises such as bars, um, restaurants where alcohol is sold. You want um, you want the duration to be longer, to be at least um, 3 hours. Places of entertainment where there's lots of people, like stadium, malls, um, anywhere there is lots of people gathering. This is where the 3 hour duration is required. Where is the 1 hour duration required? 1 hour is required in premises that must not be evacuated immediately. In premises that must be evacuated immediately. So where you want the occupants to leave the building immediately, then you can use a 1 hour duration. If you don't use a 1 hour duration, then the battery will discharge before the people leave the building. Okay. So what you find out is within a building there might be some areas that require maybe 1 hour. There are some areas that require 3 hours.
Emergency lighting.
In order to avoid confusion, it is customary to just put
when you are designing
one
emergency
duration in
lighting
building.
Installation.
And typically people
Number
use
one
3 hour
point
duration.
of emphasis is near
The advantage of using the 3 hour duration is to avoid confusion on multiple types of
from
products.
the installed emergency
Instead of having within a place there's a 1 hour
so
duration,
the minimum
within another place
luminance
there's
on
a 3 hour
each tier
duration.
thread is
Just
1
have
lux.
a blanket 3 hour duration. It avoids the
The
confusion.
number one area or one of the areas where you need to emphasize is
Also,
the stair thread.
Where immediate reoccupation, you need to reoccupy the building
and near
is very important, then you use a 3 hour duration.
So if there's a final exit
So
door
if for instance
in
it
a building,
takes
then you need to
1 hour to evacuate the
emergency
building,
light both inside and outside.
that means
Emergency
the
light
battery has
inside
2
have,
hours
a
charge
signage,
left.
and the outside will
The
just
building
be a bulkhead
can
or
be reoccupied
maybe
immediately
converted
after.
The next
So
area
within that
is
3 hours,
near
if there is at least
direction.
1 hour left,
Steps and other
then
changes
the building can be
of levels should receive direct light
reoccupied.
from emergency
If that
lighting
building,
luminaire.
if 1 hour is
So where
recommended
there
for
is a
that
change
building,
in direction,
let me state this again.
or
If a
where
building is,
there is a change in
if
level,
1 hour
you've
duration
got
is
to
recommended
provide
for a building,
emergency lighting.
and you
Near
want the
each,
building to be reoccupied
first aid
immediately
point. So if you've got a
after
first
the
aid point
mains has
in a
filled
building,
and it has been
or you've
sorted
got
out,
emergency
then
safety signage,
you need to
in a
have a
building,
3 hour
then you've
duration
got to
battery,
provide emergency light
so
to
that as
illuminate
soon as
that
the people
signage
leave,
or that the first
maybe
aid
it takes 1 hour
box.
for them to
This
leave
is a
the building.
requirement included in BS
Within 1 hour, the building is sorted
5266
out.
part 7
There is still at least 1
for
hour charge left.
all types of first
You can
aid
get the
posts,
people to
including
reoccupy the building,
first aid rooms,
and the battery will
to
now
be
charge
illuminated
fully
to a
again.
level of 5 lux.
But if, for instance, there is a building that requires 1 hour, and you put a 1 hour charge, a 1 hour duration system in the building, then
in a first aid
the
room,
building cannot be reoccupied until the battery is fully charged. It can take
safety
up to 24 hours.
signs. So the next point of emphasis
So the advantage of putting a 3 hour system,
so emergency lighting luminaires,
that you can
should
reoccupy
direct it to each
as long as there is 1 hour charge left.
sign and safety sign.
But if a building requires 3 hours
external illuminated
charge, 3 hours duration,
luminaire should be within 2 meters
then
of the sign,
and you use 1 hour
any
out of it,
further than
and there's maybe
2
2
meters
hours
away,
left, then you've got to
will
let
be unlikely to
it
illuminate
charge,
the
but
sign.
it's going to take, you're going to let it charge back to
if you
3
have a
hours.
signage and
fully
a
charged.
safety sign, then you must have
Now the
emergency
question is,
luminaire fitted.
what buildings, what are the
2
durations
meters
that are
from that
specified, that are required in
Changing
buildings?
direction is another area we need to
But when you
emphasize.
need to carry out a risk assessment,
Emergency lighting luminaires
that,
should
but
be
in
installed
the
near
regulation,
each change in direction,
there
as well
is
as near each intersection,
recommended duration
or to designate an escape sign.
for different types of building.
Emergency.
Go through them now.
So that's
within industry,
direction. You need to have
is 1 hour duration.
emergency light emphasizing
Within
that
public
direction. So if you
access,
go like a T junction
non-residential is
or,
1 hour duration.
across junction,
Non-residential
you need to
care
provide
is 1 hour
emergency
duration.
light to emphasize that
Let me come
area.
again. Industrial building, public
Exit
access,
doors.
non
So you must have an
residential
emergency
and
luminaire shall be installed
non-residential
near
care. You need 1
exit
hour.
doors to provide
A multi-story
appropriate
dwelling
illuminance near
over
the door
10 stories, you need 3
and
hours.
at the threshold.
Residential,
However, to provide
special care,
one locks,
3 hours.
to provide the one locks
Sleeping
on
risk,
the center
3
line,
hours.
the luminaire
Entertainment,
may
including
need to
temporary,
be
such
closer than
as
2
licensed
meters suggested in the drawing.
evening
So you need to have,
dance
even though you've
at
got
school,
your
you need
illuminated
3 hours.
signage on above the door,
That these
you
are
also
the
need to
premises that are
provide
recommended.
light, emergency light, to
The
show the door
duration that are recommended for the various
and the threshold. So it must be within 2
types of
meters
building.
of that
But
door.
a risk
to provide
assessment
proper illumination.
is
These are
actually
the couple of areas of
No
emphasis that we
duration
need
of the
to
building.
consider
The duration
when
of
we
the
are
emergency light
locating
system.
our
This
emergency
can be carried out
um,
by the fire engineer. And the
luminaires
fire
in a
engineer,
building.
they've got experience. They can tell you this type of building. This is what you need to